Good evening. I got a very special individual on this show this evening. But before I get off into it, I got to do what I got to do. My name is Wallace Gator Bradley, and I'm the president of United in Peace, Inc. And this show is being directed and produced by none other than the chairman of United in Peace, Inc. and someone that I consider as a blessing from God to me, because my mama pulled my coat and say, this the woman you need to have for the rest of your life. And that's Miss Terry Mars, my wife. Now for the other woman. How about that? The other woman that's on this show. What she has to say is very important, especially with the fact that the jury, by the grace of God, came back with a conviction against Van Dyke.
That's correct.
And her name is none other than attorney Lockett, Angela Lockett. So, Angela, with that, could you tell our viewing audience who you are, what you do, and what you're doing now? And let's get into something that's very important that the community is talking about now at the barbershops, the beauty salons, and the bars. I call the 3B. What kind of sentencing
What kind of
will he get?
What kind of sense he will get? Thank you, Gator.
Okay.
And hello. So my name is Angela Lockett. Like he said, I am a criminal defense attorney. I also work with First Defense Legal Aid, which is a free legal service that provides attorney representation to people in the Chicago area who are arrested or detained by Chicago police, and also for minors in the outlying collar areas.
Right.
Okay, in Cook County, but in Harvey, the outlying suburbs, if they're charged with murder or serious felony, like some type of sexual assault.
Right.
So what we do is we come to the police station for free. We never close. We never charge. We come within an hour. We make sure that the person is not being abused in any way. We also make sure that they know to exercise their right to be quiet, okay? To not incriminate themselves, to wait and let the process play out. And in that regard, also, the City of Chicago has a community justice initiative.
Right.
And so what we are doing with the community justice initiative is that the City of Chicago gave money to community organizations to spread the word in terms of First Defense Legal Aid, that we exist, we are here for you, and we are free, and also to educate the community on their rights when engaging with law enforcement. So we do teach-ins and workshops under the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, and just how it interacts with you on the street and what your rights are and how you should act if you are engaging with law enforcement, or should I say if they are engaging with you. So that's what that is. So then also, I think you said about the Jason Van Dyke.
Yes.
Okay. So Jason Van Dyke, as we know, he was convicted of second-degree murder, and he was also convicted of 16 counts of aggravated battery.
Correct.
With a firearm.
Right.
And so under Illinois law, what happens is that the more serious, so he's got all these charges stemming from this one act.
Correct.
I mean, it's several shots, but it's one act.
Right.
He drove up and he starts shooting, right? So what the law says is that you can't be multiple convictions over one act. So what they do is they merge the less serious offense in with the more serious offense, okay? So in this case, second-degree murder is a Class 1 offense which carries 4 to 20 years. However, aggravated battery is a Class X offense which carries 6 to 30 years, okay? So the Class X is the more serious offense of the two, and so that means that the second-degree murder charges more than likely will merge with the
most
conviction, exactly, for the aggravated battery with a firearm. And so unlike the second-degree murder conviction, the aggravated battery with firearm is not probationable.
Right.
Okay, so he's not going to be eligible for probation.
Correct.
What we can say sitting here, we know for sure, is that he's going to get at least 6 years in jail. Okay? And under the law, that's got to be served at 85%.
Correct.
And so the count, aggravated battery with firearm carries 6 to 30 years, okay? And so even though he has 16 counts, since it all came from the same act, even though they're separate bullets, so forth, chances are the judge is not going to be allowed to
make them
sentence him.
consecutive.
Yeah, is not going to be allowed to do it consecutive. So what he's looking at, for all intents and purposes, is 6 to 30. So if we want to advocate for something, what we should advocate for is 30 years. That's as high as he really can get.
Right.
You know, I've heard some people say, well, he's facing 96 years.
Right.
That's
what they
not,
count.
yeah.
But you know, again, I'm saying this. In 50 years, there hasn't been a conviction of one police officer for killing someone, especially an African American.
Absolutely. And there
At
wouldn't
a
be
time,
one
it wouldn't have been.
if it wasn't
Hey,
a video.
and at a time, and I want to say, Callaway, young man, hooray, hooray, hooray.
Absolutely.
You didn't wait for somebody to pass you the torch of leadership. You the one that pressed for the release of the video. You the one that pressed for him to be indicted. You the one that pressed for justice. And you the one that came out and stood up and told everyone, do not destroy the city of Chicago because of the verdict without knowing what the verdict was going to be. And I want to tell everyone, when I heard the press conference of the grand uncle of Laquan McDonald, thank everyone, especially the activists, all of them, especially the people that stood up with him, even my mellow Mark Carter and Brother Paul, that stood up with that pastor and his family when everybody else did not want to stand up with them in Callaway. I'll never forget, it was Mark Carter that said, Gator, put this out through your social media network. And he showed me how many times that man had been shot. The medical examinations piece. And my Mellow Paul saying, Gator, we never waited for nobody to give us nothing. We're going to stand with the people to get this out there screaming for justice. And here it is. So we got to be concerned about what she's saying is right and correct. But the fact of the matter is this. He's been found guilty for a crime that he committed. With the Fraternal Order of Police contract coming up, now the alderman can stand up and think right and push for a fair contract with Fraternal Order of Police that felt like their contract was tantamount to a law. And when I see that there's another trial coming up because of these officers, that conspired over months, regardless of what that video said, conspired over months to cover up for what Van Dyke did, and they need to go to jail.
Yes, they do.
They need to go to jail, because what they was telling the people, that regardless of the evidence of that video, they didn't mean nothing. And they did it publicly.
I'm sure they probably wouldn't have done that if they thought that tape was going to get out and
No,
become.
they did this after the tape came up. Months after the tape.
Months after the tape, the officers went and amended their police report?
Yes.
Well, okay.
Right, that's what I'm telling you.
Okay.
How I found this out. This is a federal indictment against these officers. So they have something, as you know, that's called a Santiago proffer, or whatever that is, where the prosecuting attorney have to come back and say why she feel this evidence is so strong against them. And they sealed it.
Okay.
They released the seal Thursday and made it public. Thursday. That date is so important because that's the date that they had closing argument and turned everything over to the jury.
Okay.
This guy in this picture is Police Officer Joseph Walsh. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Joseph Walsh.
Joseph Walsh. He also got on the stand up under immunity to tell the truth. And got up there and he told the lie.
Well, he should be prosecuted for perjury.
Oh, ain't no question. Now you know the federal court a different type of animal than the circuit court. You
Yeah, they
know what I'm saying?
play.
They don't
Absolutely.
play. You know, so I'm just saying, people, we got to stand with whoever become the mayor. Pray that they pick the right person to be their corporate counsel, to stand with this decree that's asking for a federal monitor that was agreed to by Lisa Madigan and Rahm Emanuel, and stand with whomever is the alderman or who will become the alderman when they make that contract with Fraternal Order Police fair to the point that no officer that engaged in misconduct or murdering any citizen within the city of Chicago, don't just call him a bad apple. Call him a criminal.
Absolutely.
And I'm speaking as a former criminal. Did my time, been graced by God to get a pardon from a governor because of the work that I put back within the community. And that's called public safety. You get the public's respect for law enforcement, because I am not about being a part of any society where there is no enforcement of law. But when an individual that's a law enforcement officer cross that line, he jeopardized all the other good officers. Because many times, this counselor, along with me, have heard over the years that CPD is the biggest gang
Well, we
in
know
the city of Chicago.
we know it to be true. You go back to Fred Hampton
Right.
and Mark Clark. I mean, this is the city of Chicago. So we know that this is true. And when it comes to this contract, hopefully we can take these as truisms into the negotiation.
Right, correct.
Because we start a lot of time, and it's frustrating when you're just trying to have people understand that, hey, I'm harassed daily. Like, this happens all the time.
Right.
And they have their heads in the cloud and it doesn't happen to them, so they act like it doesn't happen. But you know, I was thinking about that contract, and with this whole Laquan thing, and us hearing about Laquan was allegedly had PCP in his system. Was the officer dropped? It seemed to me
he needed to be dropped.
Yeah, that he was the one who acted
irrationally.
Absolutely.
He the one that acted like he may have been under the influence.
Absolutely.
But when you come to find out, as you know, Counselor, you hear it constantly. First off, those officers are human beings.
They are.
Okay? They may have left the house after arguing with their wife.
Absolutely.
Okay? They may drink a lot, like the guy that's running for the want to be on the Supreme Court. I love beer. I love beer. I love a beer.
He's probably gonna make it.
They may also engage in the use of illicit medication or medication.
Absolutely.
When you see that the suicide rate amongst Chicago police officers has went up,
That's horrible.
that's horrible.
Absolutely.
But picture this. I'm not saying all officers, but you may have an officer that may be suicidal that's out there on the beat. His mind is suicidal tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
He thinking, I want to kill myself. And then make decision, I'll kill him or her.
That's all possible.
You know?
It just seems like there should be, I don't know if it's in the contract, but
Hey, it need
it
to be.
should be. I had a friend who worked at a factory, and he drove a forklift. And he got in an accident where he dropped some boxes off the forklift.
Right.
And they made him go take a drug test.
Right.
Because he dropped these boxes on the forklift.
Right.
So it's common.
Hey.
If you injure somebody at your job, if you're accused of excessive force, not just shooting somebody, but punching somebody, any of that, you should be drug tested.
Right. And you know, one of the things in that decree, they came to agreement that the officers got to make a report every time they pour their gun on someone.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
you know,
thing.
the thing, as you know, and as I know, and a host of our viewing audience know, for some reason, they don't make the officer that's engaged in the shooting take a breathalyzer,
Absolutely.
take a drug test. You get a report from them 3 or 4 days afterwards. But let me shoot you. They gonna make sure they want to see if I was drunk,
Yep.
if I was high. The defense in Van Dyke's case tried to make Laquan McDonald
Into a monster.
the monster and the criminal.
His eyes.
After
It's
they
horrible.
did a toxicology of him.
Quan. Mm-hmm. So what?
That was their defense.
Yeah, and I bet Van Dyke. I mean, I don't know this to be true, but it wouldn't shock me if he had something in his system.
Ain't no question. Caller, I see you. Could you please state your name for our viewing audience and our listening audience?
This is an anonymous call.
This is who?
Just
Anonymous.
an anonymous call. I'm just telling you that when an officer does or is involved in a shooting, they are required to take a drug test.
Good.
Okay.
I'm glad to.
I'm glad to hear that.
And the reports, as you said, are not submitted until 4 days later. No, the report has to be submitted before the end of their tour.
Hey, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. Because now the public is aware of that. Because one thing the public know, none of that never have came up about any officer that was involved in any misconduct. So now the public know what to ask for and demand. And now
Absolutely.
the alderman can make sure that we know this polling to happen. We said it needs to be in the contract, and this is what expected of any officer, whether they involved in a domestic violence case.
Was the caller still in the air?
Yes, caller.
Is this just for shootings, or is it for any allegations of excessive force?
Oh, he's gone.
Oh.
Okay. You know, something else that I want to say before we wrap it up. I want to let it be known because everybody have been calling me and saying, well, Gator, what's Rhonda's stance on this? What's JB's stance on this before the conviction even came down? And one of the things I want to share with you, I want to probably show you the statement from J.B. Pritzker. I want to read it to you as well. J.B. Pritzker and Juliana Stratton released a joint statement on Laquan McDonald's trial. And it reads, today, J.B. Pritzker and Juliana Stratton released the following joint statement on the guilty verdict in the Laquan McDonald case. Today, Jason Van Dyke was held accountable for his role in the tragic death of Laquan McDonald, and justice was finally served for him, for his family, who have already endured so much during this difficult time, said J.B. Pritzker and Juliana Stratton. While there is still so much work to do, we believe this verdict represents an important step, one of many, towards fostering an environment of respect and accountability between law enforcement and the communities they serve. That's out through all the media. I'm glad that they sent me a copy of this statement because I too wanted to know where those that's running for governor stands on this. Because as governor, they can support legislation that's going to change the laws to make it where anybody, especially an officer of the law, if he's engaged in misconduct. And now that the anonymous caller came on the line and made it known on this show, was already a part of what police officers supposed to do. Let that become a part of the legislation within the state to represent all the police, regardless what county. There's 102 counties. There's only one individual I know that win in every one of them counties, and that's Secretary of State Jesse White.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm saying, there's so many cities and townships within the counties that have their own police. So if this become a state law, what the anonymous caller was saying, that would help change the tide.
And it shouldn't just be for shootings, it should be for all allegations of misconduct.
Of misconduct, whether it's domestic violence. That's why I brought that out. Okay?
Yes.
I've seen a lot of women that's married to police officers and men that's married to police officers that scream about this domestic peace that's done to them by officers, and they ask the question, who can they call? So I want to say, we as a people have the power to pray, and we have the power to vote.
Absolutely.
But if you're not registered, you do not have the right to sit on a jury or demand that you be a part of a jury. You got to get registered to vote, and all you ex-felons that's coming home in Illinois, you got a right to vote.
Yes, you do.
So I don't want to hear that, Gator, we can't find no housing, we can't do this. Get registered and vote, and you have housing when you get out. Again, let me end this show by saying, vote, don't choke, vote for J.B. Pritzker. And with that one, say to God be the glory, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right.